And this time the answer is 3 because 3 times 3 is equal to 9. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, we're going to learn about the concept of the Pythagorean Theorem. This theorem can be written as an equation relating to the lengths of the sides A, B, and C, often called the Pythagorean equation, whereas A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared, where C represent the lengths of the hypotenuse and A and B the lengths of the triangle's other two sides. The theorem, whose history is the subject much debate, is named for the Greek thinker Pythagoras or Pythagoras, born around 570 BC. In mathematics, the Pythagorean Theorem or Pythagoras Theorem is a fundamental relation in Euclidean geometry among the three sides of the right triangle. It states that the area of the square whose side is the hypotenuse, the side opposite the right angle, is equal to the sum of the areas of the squares on the other two sides. The theorem has been proven numerous times by many different methods, possibly the most for any mathematical theorem. The proofs are diverse, including both geometric proofs and algebraic proofs, with some dating back thousands of years. The theorem can be generalized in various ways: to higher dimensional spaces, to spaces that are not Euclidean, to objects that are not right triangles, and to objects that are not triangles at all, or at all but n-dimensional solids. The Pythagorean theorem has attracted interest outside mathematics as a symbol of mathematical obtuseness, mystique, or intellectual power. Popular references in literature, plays, musicals, songs, stops, and cartoons abound. Who invented it? Pythagoras was a Greek mathematician. He created the theorem, which was, of course, named after him. Pythagoras' theory is, in any right triangle, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of two squares on the other two sides. That's A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. So we're going to recall the triangles classified in two ways. The first one is the size of the angle. The second one is the length of the sides. In size of the angle, we have acute, obtuse, and right angle, whereas the acute is the all angles less than 90 degrees, and obtuse is one angle over 90 degrees, and the right angle is one 90-degree angle. In the length of the sides, we have the equilateral, whereas the all three sides equal in length. We have also the isosceles, whereas the two sides of equal length, and the scalene, no sides of equal length. Right angle triangle. A right angle triangle is a triangle that has one right angle. Every right angle triangle is labeled the same way. The side opposite the right angle is called the hypotenuse and always labeled C or small letter C. The other two sides are labeled small letter A for the altitude and B, small letter B, for the base. The A and B sides, also called a leg. Okay, as we see in the figure, in the right side, we have the figure of the right triangle. We have the altitude and the bottom base or the base, and we have the right angle and then the hypotenuse. The Pythagorean Theorem. The Pythagorean Theorem is a way of calculating the sides of the right angle triangle. An example of finding the missing hypotenuse, you already have the measurements of the altitude and the base side squares, and you already have one equal square on each side of the triangle, and so you begin to solve the Pythagorean theorem. Example, for the Pythagorean theorem, say square A is 3 times 3, and the B, or big letter B, square is 4 times 4, and the example triangle with the measurements for the sides A and B, as we see in the right side figure. So we have the right triangle, we have 3 and 4, whereas the altitude would be 3 and the base would be 4. Then we are going to find the value of the hypotenuse. Okay, so as we see in the figure, we have the right triangle, we have the legs, okay, the altitude and the base, and 190 degree, which is the right angle, and of course the hypotenuse side. Sometimes they say that the hypotenuse is always the longest side of the right triangle. Continuing the example of finding the missing hypotenuse, next step to finding the hypotenuse is to put the two a and b square numbers into the theory or equation. So we have a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared into 3 squared plus 4 squared is equal to c squared. So yan pa rin yung example natin kanina. So as we see in the left side, the right triangle. So then solve in this case the 3 squared and 4 squared part, which would then equal 9 and 16. So 9 plus 16 is equal to c squared. So kaya naging 9 siya, kaya yung in the left side figure, 9 siya kasi 3 times 3, that's the altitude, and the base is 4, then 4 times 4. Okay? So that's when naging 16 siya. So just simply substitute in the equation or in the theory. So again, the diagram of the right angle triangle in the 3 equal triangles with A and B numbers filled in. So still continuing the example of finding the missing hypotenuse, and then add 9 and 16. We're going to add the 9 and 16, which makes 25. And then because there is still a squared on, or a squared on the C, you have to square root it. So we're going to square root or find what multiples of equally twice into the sum. Example 25. So the answer to the example would be 5, because 5 times 5 is equal to 25. So the hypotenuse now is solved. Okay? So the value of the hypotenuse is 5. Next, an example now of finding the missing leg. So, nakuha natin yung way kung paano hanapin yung missing hypotenuse. Ngayon naman, we're going to find the missing leg. So, in finding the missing leg is like finding the missing hypotenuse, but some of the steps are different. When you begin, you already have the measurements for the hypotenuse, and either the base or the altitude side, and you again have one equal square on each side of the triangle. So in this case, the hypotenuse is 5 times 5 and the base is 4 times 4, and we do not know the altitude. So in the example triangle with the measurement for sides C and B. So as we see in the right side triangle, since we have the value of the hypotenuse, which is the 5, then the bottom base is, or the base is 4. Okay, so we're going to find the value of the altitude. So continuing the example of finding the missing leg, next step is also the same as the last time, where you put the C and either A or B, whichever one was already found, into the equation. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. And this time, it turns into a squared plus 4 squared is equal to 5 squared. Just simply substitute the the given values. Okay, or we can also manipulate the theory or the equation. Okay, kung saan tayo mas mapadala, pwede natin i-manipulate yung equation ng Pythagorean Theorem. So then, solve in this case the 4 squared and 5 squared part, which would then be, again, in this case, a 16 and 25. So in the diagram, the right side, the diagram of the Pythagoras right angle triangle with the area filled in for square C and B and A still unknown. Okay? So, of course, we have the, kaya naging 25, kaya si 5 times 5, that's 25. Then, 4 times 4, 16. Naging 16. And then, ang hanapin natin yung value ng altitude. Okay, so still continuing the example of finding the missing leg. Here, where you go different way than finding the missing hypotenuse. Now, you take a squared plus 16 is equal to 25 and change the problem around until the a squared is by itself on one side. Or just like a kind of in solving algebra. So, it turns it into a squared is equal to 25 minus 16. So, sabi pa, transpose. So, kapag positive, maging negative. Or, using the subtraction property of equality. Okay, next. Solve 25 minus 16. So, we're going to minus, that's equals 9. And then, figure out what multiples by itself equal into 9. Or, square root it. So, we're going to, this time, the answer is 3. Because 3 times 3 is equal to 9. So, the leg is solved. So, ang ginamit rin natin na example ay yung kanina rin na hanapin natin yung hypotenuse. Okay? So, Pythagorean or Pythagoras Theorem. So, as we see again, remember that we have the altitude is labeled at small letter A, and the bottom base or the base is labeled at small letter B, and of course, the hypotenuse is, or the sloping side is always labeled at C, small letter C. So, as another example, as we see in the triangle below, we have the blue triangle is equal to 6 and B is equal to 8, C is equal to 10. So, if i-substitute natin yan lahat, yung mga value na yan sa Pythagorean Theorem formula or in the equation of A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared, makuha natin, we have, so, substitute natin ng mga values, 6 times 6 or 6 squared is equal to 36 plus 8 times 8 is equal to 64, then 10 times 10 or 10 squared is equal to 100. So, 36 plus 64 is equal to 100 and bring down 100. So, as we see, as we observe, that's equal. Okay? So, this a 6, 8, 10 right triangle obeys the Pythagoras rule. Okay? So, yan lang. Okay, so that's all. I hope nakuha kayo ng concept or nakuha kayo ng idea about the concept of the Pythagorean Theorem. Okay, so see you in the next video. Bye!